All right, so I'm going to talk you through how to put together your Renaissance art presentation and what I am going to be looking for when I grade you. And again, you're going to take what you create. It needs to be less than 5 minutes. Mine will be a little over 5 minutes because I'm talking to you about what the presentation needs to entail as well as talking to you about the art. But yours should be less than 5 minutes. Otherwise, Screencastify shuts down. In fact, as I'm thinking it through, I don't know if I have the premium version. So Screencastify might shut me down too. So let me take you through the basics. So starting off with your title. So you need a slideshow that has the title of the art. So the art that I'm going to be teaching you about today is the Annunciation with Saint Emidius, and it's by Carlo Crivelli. He's an Italian, and it was painted in 1486. One of the things you need to know about the title of this piece of artwork is it's called the Annunciation. And so you're going to see the Annunciation quite often used. It's when in biblical storytelling, it's when Mary, the Virgin Mary, found out that she was pregnant with Jesus. So it was called the Annunciation when it was announced that she was pregnant with Jesus. Now this is with an additional saint, Emidius, who was the saint of the town that Carlo Crivelli was painting this for. So they lots of towns or in areas in Italy have patron saints. And so that's what this was about. So the next thing that you're going to see is we're going to go to the next slide, and you are going to be able to see you're going to see an overall of the artwork, which I think you should start with. Always start with a big picture and then go down to like the little parts and talk about the symbols and all that kind of stuff. So as I go through my overview here, you're going to see that this painting was done again by an Italian in 1486. It was painted for a city, and this is a real Renaissance type of thing, that a city would want a piece of artwork painted for their town, which would be different than art from the Middle Ages, which was most often painted for the church. So even though this has a religious component and it's about a religious story, the point of it is to bring glory not to God, but to this city. It's a pretty big painting. It's 5 feet by 8 feet. It's considered civic art, or art that was meant to be displayed for large groups of people to see, obviously not private art. So it's a piece of public artwork, and I'm going to move this over so you can see the entire painting. So this painting is a combination of showing us religion, which is sacred, and that's very Middle Ages, but then moving away and looking at things that were more important to people, and we call it secular, which would be non-religious. So I'm going to take you through some of the basics right now. So the things that are sacred in this painting, which doesn't mean it's not Renaissance, it just means that Renaissance art took the sacred and then tried to put it within everybody's daily life so that it became part of their lives, and it really blended the things together. So I'm going to make my face even smaller, and I'm going to move it during this time period. So you might do the same thing in order to show the different parts. So the things that you're going to focus on is there's a shaft of light coming from heaven, and it's going right through a window down here, which I find, oops, that's not obviously working exactly how I wanted it to, but there's a window here that it goes through, and then it hits Mary in the head, like right in the head. Beautiful, right? So this is showing the story of Mary finding out that she's pregnant with Jesus, and the dove represents the Holy Spirit, but it's all within this Italian city, right? And Mary doesn't look like a poor peasant woman from the Middle East, but that's what she was in the story, in the biblical story, but they brought it into the daily life of the Italian people, showing that the Italian people think that what their lives are like is really important and should be taught. So that's some of the sacred stuff that's in here. The next thing that you're going to see, and I'm going to erase some of these things here so they're not on here. And then if you guys do this where you write on it, have to know that when you go to the next slide, the writing stays. So you're going to need to move that and change that. So one of the things that's really interesting, and we talk about with Renaissance art, the focus on people and man, is that this painting is really about the city. And so what's funny is the angel is supposed to come and talk to Mary and let her know what's happening. to her. So you just got pregnant by the Holy Spirit and you're going to have Jesus. And this is a big deal. But all of a sudden you have the saint, the patron saint of the city, showing up, and he's actually holding, it's really kind of funny, but he's holding a small scaled version of the town. And I always like to say, where did this, like, he's interrupting one of the most important things of Christian history to say, hey, have you seen my city? Looking pretty hot there, right? So he goes and shows the city, and he's distracting the saint, or distracting the angel from being able to talk to Mary. So that is kind of a funny little thing that's happening there. So now we're going to go to talking a little bit more about some of the things that are in this painting that really do reflect the focus of the Renaissance. So things in this painting that are truly secular, which would be non-religious. So you've got the focus on business, and in the back of the painting, with this great depth that is shown, which was a new skill for artists during this time period. But in the back of the painting, you have a business deal going on, some dealing going on top of the little bridge there. And it looks like a rug, and this looks like a Turkish rug, which would tell you that they're trading with the Ottoman Empire, and that you have this bringing in of lots of cultures to the area of Italy. So there's a business deal going on. You have this very ornate Italian building where a religious event was supposed to have occurred. So they're essentially bringing the story of Jesus into Italy instead of having the Italian people think about what it was like for Jesus and people from the Middle East at that time. So again, kind of taking religion and making it theirs. On top of that, you see a lot of the mathematical calculations and things that had been of value to the Renaissance people. So the idea of your ceiling having a very geometric setup. And a lot of painters during this time period like to show their skill with math and depth. You also have precious wood that would have been from different regions of Europe, where they would have been able to, getting wood and wood paneling would have been expensive. So this is just a sign of the wealth of the town that Crivelli has been asked to paint, right? So you'd have the town get their money together. They would become the patron of Crivelli, and they'd ask him to paint this. Additionally, you have a focus on reading. You have Mary, who would have been illiterate in the Bible time period, who here is actually reading a book when she becomes pregnant with Jesus. So, and then on top of that, there's a section over here of the painting where you're just going to see all of the wealth of the person of Mary that's in the painting is displayed. So there's a focus on accumulation of goods that would be considered expensive. So you've got a brass candlestick, you've got boxes and pots and dishes and leather-bound books, all showing the wealth of the city. Another thing the Renaissance really valued was this focus on exploration and finding things that were maybe hadn't been around for a really long time during the Middle Ages, but the Europeans are going to start traveling and interacting all over the world, and they're going to want to show that they are wealthy, but also to show that they are gaining knowledge and learning more about the rest of the world. So in this painting, you see a peacock, which obviously is not indigenous to Italy, as well as the Oriental rugs. There's actually two that are in this painting. One is being sold and then one's being displayed. So just this access to wealth and riches, these rugs would have been very expensive. Additionally, these rugs, the pattern would have allowed you to see exactly what region of the Middle East the rug was from. And then you also see up here in these cages here, you're seeing carrier pigeons. So this idea of communication. So when you have a painting that's created for a town and you're trying to sell your town, so your town is amazing, it has all of these resources and all these things, and it's like at a crossroads of all these different cultures, and you really want people to understand that if they come to this town, they're going to be able to do business, and they're going to be able to communicate, and they're going to be able to trade. What was art like prior to this? It was about just the story of the church, right? It was how people learned about their religion and what they believed, because a lot of them were illiterate. So it was through art. But this is exactly the opposite. I mean, you have the story of Mary, but it's almost a side story. The big story is this town and this city and what it can offer you. And then at the bottom of the painting, it says Libertas Ecclesiastica. And so that means freedom from the church, which I think is a great example of how this is kind of moving away from the religious aspect and is becoming secular. In 1482, the reason this painting was commissioned is because the Pope and the Catholic Church had granted this town in Italy limited self-government. So they were allowed to rule themselves for the first time. And so this painting was created to remember that. So overall, I would just kind of remind you that this painting diverges from, oops, I don't want to make myself that much bigger. It diverges from the Middle Ages and the way artwork was in the Middle Ages, because the focus is really on all the other things that were going on during the Renaissance, meaning the trade and the beautiful art and the reading and the focus on humans and what they can accomplish. It was less on religion. And so even though the religious aspect and the story is in here, it really is drowned out by all the rest. It's drowned out by the importance of life today and on worldly goods. So I would be finished at this point, and this would be the end of your presentation. And then the next step would be to then save it to your drive, download it from your drive to your temporary downloads on your Google Chromebook, and then you're going to upload it to Flipgrid. And that will allow other students to see it, and you're going to be responsible for watching 3 others, because you guys really need to have more than one piece of artwork that you know, so that when you come to writing and you need outside evidence to support your claim, you would have multiple pieces of Renaissance art that you could incorporate into your answer. So this is going to be essential for you to know at least, I would say, 3 to 4 pieces of Renaissance art, and you need to remember it all the way into May. So obviously you're going to remember the one you did, but you're going to need to look into and remember a few more in order to be successful in some of your short answers possibly, or in a DBQ. So please, once you finish uploading yours, you're going to have a chance to look at other people's Flipgrids, and then there'll be an assignment that you're going to watch. I believe it's going to be 3 more, so that you have more content to work with. Normally in class, we would have had everybody present in groups, and they would have, you would have been taking notes on all of them. So you might have 15, but let's be honest, you didn't remember 15. So if we can get you to remember 3 to 4, I think we're going to be in a good place.